I'm Donna Blanchard, and this is your ThinkTech news for Thursday, March 9th, 2015. Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, remained fairly quiet and supportive during the nuclear deal talks in Switzerland, but is now making some noise. He said in a press conference today that he has two issues with the negotiations thus far and insists on changes. He wants all economic sanctions lifted on the day any agreement is signed. Instead, those sanctions are set on a schedule of elimination, ostensibly to give Iran a chance to prove their integrity. And he wants all his military sites to be strictly off limits to foreign inspectors. Regular and spontaneous site inspections are a part of the agreement, again included to check up on how well Iran is keeping their end of the bargain. Thomas Erdbrink wrote in the New York Times today that these assertions could be a tactical move by the Ayatollah, intended to give himself and the negotiators some political space to get hardliners slowly accustomed to the framework of the deal. Let's hope he's right. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani spoke at a separate conference and said something quite different than the Ayatollah. He said the sanctions should be lifted on the day a deal is put in place. There could be months between the time an agreement is signed and when it is put in place. This could also be a carefully planned strategy. In his press conference, the supreme leader also threw some jabs at their supreme enemy, Saudi Arabia. He called the Saudi new leaders inexperienced youngsters. This remark comes as the U.S. seems to be trying very hard to keep their backing of the Saudi-led airstrikes against the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen very separate from this nuclear agreement. In North Charleston, South Carolina, a 50-year-old black man was shot in the back repeatedly by a police officer. Mr. Walter Scott was unarmed and running away from Officer Michael Slager when the officer fired his gun at Mr. Scott 8 times at a distance of about 15 to 20 feet, killing Mr. Scott. There are few circumstances under which a police officer can legally shoot a fleeing person. If a suspect committed or was about to commit a dangerous and serious felony, if a suspect threatens an officer with a weapon, or an officer believes the suspect will cause death or serious injury to the officer, it is legal for an officer to fire his weapon at the suspect's back as they flee. None of these circumstances are applicable in this case, and the entire altercation was filmed. Now, former Officer Slager claims that the suspect took his taser, but in the video it appears that Mr. Slager used his taser on Scott. Mr. Scott fled empty-handed and was then killed by Mr. Slager. Fiden Santana is the man who took the video. He was walking nearby when he saw Scott and Slager struggling on the ground, and Scott fled. Mr. Santana told NBC Nightly News that the officer had control of Scott and was using his taser. He said, quote, "I believe he, Scott, just wanted to get away from the taser." Slager has been fired and charged with murder. Mr. Slager is white and Mr. Scott was a black man. Dozens of protesters allege the prejudice was among the North Charleston police the root cause of the problem. Muhyiddin Moe Dabana, an organizer with the activist group Black Lives Matter, said, "This is not an isolated incident. This is something that exists within a system down here." Otha Meadows, president of the local chapter of the Urban League, said the community was frustrated by a number of shootings of black men by police officers in the region. I'm Donna Blanchard, and this has been your ThinkTech Daily News for Thursday, April 9th, 2015. Ahui ho.